The sky above Earth's last outpost was burning red. Smoke from destroyed ships covered the horizon like a thick, choking blanket. The enemy had surrounded the base. Every soldier knew this was the end. Commanders shouted orders. Alarms screamed. Drones flew overhead, scanning for any sign of hope. But there was none. And in the middle of all that chaos, a young man named Rayon stood quietly near the edge of the base, holding a worn leather map. Nobody looked at him twice. He wasn't a captain. He wasn't a hero. It's just a scout who walked too far and spoke too little. But today, Rayon had volunteered for something no one else dared to do. A mission that the generals laughed at. A mission into the Black Rock Mountains. A place cursed in every war record. A place where soldiers went missing. A place where they said an alien warrior had been sealed away 500 years ago because she was too dangerous to exist. Rayon had read about her in forgotten books. The stories called her the Blade of Night. She was not born to any one species. She had defeated them all. Her armor was black as space. Her spear could cut through steel. And her eyes, it was said, could freeze the blood of anyone who looked into them. The stories said she had vanished. Others whispered she had been locked away in the earth itself, hidden by those too afraid of what she could become. Now Rayon was going to find her, not because he believed in legends, but because there was no other choice left. As he stepped outside the base walls, 2 guards stopped him. "Where do you think you're going?" one asked. Rayon showed them the map, to wake her. The guards blinked. Then they laughed. "You think bedtime stories will save us?" "No," Rayon answered calmly. "But your ships aren't stopping them either."
They let
him pass, not out of respect, but because they thought he was walking to his death. The Black Rock Mountains rose like black teeth from the desert floor, jagged, cold, silent. Rayon walked for 3 days. The sun burned his back by day. Wind froze his fingers by night. He ate almost nothing, drank only when needed, but he never turned back. He followed the map, step by step, past ancient stones, across dried rivers, through cracked ravines. Finally, on the 4th morning, he reached it. The mouth of the cave. It wasn't big. It didn't glow. There were no guards, no signs, just silence. Deep and heavy. Rayon took a breath and entered. The air changed the moment he stepped inside. It was cold, but not empty. It's like the cave itself was breathing. He walked carefully. The stone under his boots was smooth, too smooth, like something had once passed here many times. Glowing marks lined the walls, not bright, just enough to guide the path. He passed what looked like traps, ancient spears that hadn't moved in centuries, but none triggered. Then he reached it. A massive stone door. No handles, no locks. Just a single circular hole at the center. Rayon didn't hesitate. He pulled out a sharp shard of metal, cut his palm, and let a drop of blood fall into the hole. The door shuddered. Dust fell, and with a long, deep groan, it slid open. Inside was a round chamber, lit by a soft blue glow, and in the center, floating in crystal, was the warrior. She looked asleep, but not weak. Her armor was dark silver, untouched by time. Her body was tall, powerful. Her arms rested on a long spear that hovered with her inside the crystal. Her eyes were closed, her face calm. Rayon stepped forward. He didn't know if this was a trap. He didn't care. He placed his hand on the crystal. "My name is Rayon. Humanity is falling. You don't know me, but we need you." The chamber stayed silent. He turned to walk away. Maybe it was all a lie. Then he heard it, a soft cracking sound. He turned. Wow. The crystal had a thin line across it. Another crack, and another. And slowly one of her fingers moved. Rayon didn't. Know what would happen next? She might kill him. She might not even speak his language. But one thing was clear. She was waking up, and the galaxy was about to change. Asterisk, the cracks spread like lightning across the crystal. A sound echoed in the chamber, low and strange, not like glass breaking, like a whisper exhaling from deep inside the stone. Rayon stepped back. His hand hovered near the small laser knife at his belt, though he knew it would be useless. If she attacked, the crystal pulsed with a dim blue glow, not bright but alive. For a moment, it looked like the crystal was breathing. Then it shattered, not with a loud explosion, but in complete silence. Shards of glowing fragments floated into the air and vanished like dust. And she stood there, upright, barefoot, her eyes still closed, like her body had waited for this exact moment. Her armor was smooth and dark, with sharp silver edges near the shoulders and arms. The spear in her hand was longer than Rayan's entire height, forged from some black metal that shimmered when the light touched it. She took a single breath, then her eyes opened. Rayan froze. They were unlike any eyes he'd ever seen. One was deep gold, the other silver with a faint red ring. Those eyes didn't just look at him, they scanned him, they judged him. She didn't speak. She moved fast, impossibly fast. One moment she was standing, the next her hand was wrapped tightly around Rayan's neck, lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing. "You are not of my kind," she said in a cold, sharp voice. Rayan gasped, trying to speak. No. I'm human. I woke you." Her grip tightened slightly, not enough to crush, but enough to warn. Her eyes narrowed. "How many years have passed?" 500. Rayan choked. She dropped him. Rayan fell to one knee, coughing, but kept his eyes on her, not in fear. In awe, she didn't look confused. She didn't ask more. She simply turned away and looked around the chamber. "These symbols," she muttered, brushing her fingers along the glowing lines on the wall. "This chamber, it is not how I remember it." She walked slowly, her bare feet making no sound. Her fingers traced a strange symbol, a three-pointed star, and the wall shifted open, revealing a narrow path. The light followed her. Rayan stood up slowly. You remember this place?" "I remember being betrayed," she said without looking back, "and I remember choosing sleep over madness." Rayan hesitated, then followed. The corridor was curved and smooth, like it had been carved by water, not machines. The walls pulsed faintly like veins running with energy. Every step they took felt heavier. The deeper they went, the more the cave seemed. Aware, at one point, the woman stopped. "Look," she said softly. Rayan looked. On the wall, carved into the stone, was a mural. Old, faded, but powerful. It showed a woman tall and armored standing alone against hundreds of enemies. Ships in the sky, fire on the ground. She held her spear high. The enemy ran, Rayan realized. It was her. "You were a hero," he said. "No," she replied. "I was a weapon." They reached another chamber, smaller, round, with a raised platform in the middle. She stepped onto it, and suddenly the ceiling lit up. Holograms burst into life, old data, recordings, names, symbols of forgotten empires. She watched in silence, her hands behind her back, her expression unreadable. Then, a name appeared in alien script. She whispered it. Not in fear, not in anger. "In pain, Varshina?" Rayan asked. "Is that your name?" "No," she said. "That is the one who betrayed me." Before he could ask more, the platform turned off. She stepped down. Her eyes were distant now, like she was walking through memories instead of tunnels. "I don't know why you came," she said finally, "but if you woke me, it means your war is already lost." Rayan looked down, then met. Her eyes, "Yes, we're losing. That's why I came." "To ask for your help." She didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward the exit, a massive stone door sealed shut with glowing runes. She raised her hand, and the runes vanished. The door opened with a deep breath, like the cave itself was exhaling. Sunlight poured in. She stood at the edge, her hair lifting gently in the wind, and for the first time in 500 years, she stepped outside. The world was different. The sky was not the same. The moons had shifted. The air smelled of fuel and machines. She stared at the horizon, at the broken skyships, the smoke rising in the distance, and the strange metal towers that hummed with foreign power. She didn't speak, but her grip on the spear tightened. Rayan came beside her. "Will you help us?" She looked at him, long and slow. "I don't fight for lost causes," she said. Then she turned her head slightly, toward the wind, and whispered, "But I do fight to remind the galaxy what power feels like." She stood still, staring at the broken sky, as if searching for something she had left behind long ago. But the stars didn't answer her. The wind carried no familiar scent. The world she stepped into was not the one she remembered. Rayan stayed a few steps behind. His heart beat fast, but he stayed silent. He could feel her power, not just in her muscles or the sharp spear she carried, but in the way. The ground almost seemed to listen when she moved. She was something more than just a soldier. She was built for war, but shaped by betrayal. And now she was awake in a world where her name had been forgotten. She walked slowly, past broken trees and scorched stone. Her footsteps were soft, but left deep prints in the dirt. Rayan followed her, choosing his words carefully. "Do you remember anything about who you were?" She didn't stop walking. "Remember enough." He waited, but she didn't continue. They reached a small cliff that overlooked the valley below, the valley where the human base was once hidden. Now it burned. Ships in the sky were either falling or fleeing. The enemy, tall, insect-like creatures with glowing eyes, marched in rows across the land. Her face remained unreadable. "This is your world now?" she asked. Rayan nodded slowly. "It's what's left of it." She looked down at the battlefield. "You fear nothing?" "No," he said, "but maybe they'll fear you." She turned to him, one brow raised. "Fear is not enough. I want them to remember," continued, walking down a narrow path that had once been used by mountain scouts. At one point she paused, then crouched near a large rock covered in strange markings. "This was not here before," she whispered. "What does it mean?" Rayan asked. She brushed the dust away. The symbol underneath was sharp and cruel, a broken crown with thorns surrounding it. Her jaw clenched. "They marked this land after I fell." Rayan looked confused. "You mean after you were sealed?" "No," she said darkly. "I was not sealed by enemies. I was sealed by my own kind. This mark, it means they ruled in my place." Rayan stepped closer. "Why would they do that?" She stood slowly, eyes cold. "Because I refused to become a monster." As they traveled, strange machines hidden in the cliffs woke up. Drones buzzed overhead. One locked onto her face, scanned it, and suddenly began to shake, then dropped from the sky like it had seen death itself. Rayan blinked. "It recognized you." "They designed those drones after the war," she said, "to detect high-threat weapons. It seems I am still on their list." Rayan asked the question he had been holding since she woke. "What? What are you? Really?" She didn't smile, didn't lie. "I was built, not born. They took blood from the fiercest warriors in the galaxy, human, alien, hybrid, and made something that would never age, never tire, never betray." "But you were betrayed," Rayan said softly. "Yes," she nodded. "Because I chose to disobey." They found an old outpost, long abandoned, covered in ash and rust. Inside, the system still worked barely. She touched one of the terminals, and it lit up instantly. Rayan watched as symbols appeared and a voice echoed in the room. "Subject X-27, status, terminated. Memory logs, erased. Clearance, denied." Lammed her fist on the panel, the lights flickered, and the voice stuttered. "Terminated. Term Ina, access restored." Rayan stepped back. "What did you do?" "I reminded the system who I am," she said. Files appeared in the air, blue light forming. Maps, mission logs, and video fragments. One file played automatically. A group of alien commanders stood in a dark chamber. At the center, her image, but they spoke as if she were a weapon, not a person. One of them said, "She is too dangerous. Seal her, erase her, let her vanish. No one must remember." Rayan looked at her. They really wanted to erase you. They feared what I might become, Rayan asked quietly. And what are you now? She looked him in the eyes, and for the first time, there was sadness in them. I don't know. They left the outpost in silence, but before they did, she picked up something from the wreckage, a small broken necklace. She held it in, her hand for a long moment before hiding it under her armor. Rayan saw the look on her face. It wasn't anger, it was memory. When they reached the edge of the valley again, she spoke. You came here thinking I would save your people. Rayan nodded. Yes. She narrowed her eyes. I'm not a savior, but you're all we have left. That made her pause. Then she whispered something to herself, a phrase in a language Rayan didn't understand. But whatever it was, it changed her. She stood straighter. Her grip tightened on the spear. Then I'll remind them, she said. What happens when you wake the storm? The path out of the valley was lined with bones. Not fresh, old, white, cracked by time and wind. The woman stopped at every third step, kneeling once, running her fingers over a skull once shaped like hers. She didn't speak, but Rayan could feel it. The silence around her wasn't emptiness, it was memory. She wasn't walking through a battlefield. She was walking through a grave, and every step she took brought her closer to something she hadn't felt in 5 centuries, anger by sunset. They reached the lower plains, the edge of the no-man's zone. Just beyond the next ridge, enemy scouts moved in small squads, searching for survivors. Rayan crouched low behind a burnt-out crawler. We need to stay hidden. She didn't crouch. She stood straight, in the open, and watched the horizon. Like she was expecting someone. There are too many, Rayan whispered. She looked at him calmly. Then it's a fair fight. Moments later, 6 alien soldiers crept over the ridge, tall, thin, armored in black, with orange glowing cracks across their spines. Their faces were smooth, eyeless, their jaws split into 4 sharp points. They didn't speak. They just hissed and aimed their energy rifles. Rayan panicked. Run. She didn't move, in fact. She stepped forward. One of the aliens fired. The blast streaked toward her, and with one motion, she raised her arm and caught it. Caught it. The energy sizzled in her palm like lightning trapped in glass. Then she crushed it, and the moment after she vanished, Rayan didn't see her move, just heard it. The crack of a skull, the thud of a body falling, the flash of metal in the dusk light. Then silence. He peeked from behind the crawler. All 6 alien. Bodies were on the ground, some sliced, some broken, none breathing. She stood in the center, her black spear still humming with energy. Not a scratch on her body. Her chest rose and fell once. Too slow, she muttered. Rayan stepped out, still stunned. You didn't even use a gun. I don't like toys. They searched the enemy. Bodhi's Rayan found a datapad. It displayed her face. The translation read, Subject X-27, kill on sight, no prison, no delay. He showed her. They know you're awake now. They've always feared me, she replied. But fear isn't enough anymore. She looked toward the clouds, something in her eyes sharpening. They'll send more. By nightfall, they found an abandoned station buried under vines and dust. Inside were broken lights, shattered panels, and a cracked mirror. She stood. Before it, Rayan watched as she looked at her reflection, maybe for the first time in centuries. Her fingers touched her cheek, her lips, the scar that ran from her temple to her jaw. Then slowly, she smiled, a sad, hollow smile. I'm still here, she said to no one. Then she picked up a piece of cloth, wiped the blood from her spear, and whispered, but not for long. The next morning, they crossed the ash fields. Smoke from the human base drifted in thick black waves. The air was heavy with the scent of metal, oil, and something worse, defeat. Rayan pointed toward a fallen transport ship in the distance. There were civilians in that one. He said softly, We tried to evacuate. She said nothing, but her fists clenched. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. From behind a hill, a massive alien hover tank emerged, dark purple with 3 turrets and legs instead of wheels. It crawled like a spider, scanning the field. Rayan cursed. We need to hide before he could finish. She walked forward straight toward the tank. The turrets aimed at her. The tank's sensors locked on. One warning shot lit the ground. Beside her, she kept walking. Then she ran. Not like a human. Not like a machine. Like a shadow caught in a storm. The tank fired. The ground exploded. Behind her, but she was already in the air. She leaped, flipping, twisting, and landed on top of the moving tank. With one brutal strike, she drove her. Spear straight into its core. A flash of light, a howl of metal, then silence. The tank collapsed, legs twitching. She stood atop it, breathing slowly, her eyes glowing faintly in the morning light. Rayan ran to her.
Ow.
How did you even know where the core was? I helped design their tanks, she said flatly. Before they turned on me, he stared at her. You weren't just a warrior, he realized. You were one of their leaders. She looked down at him. No, she replied. I was there. Weapon. But now I belong to no one. As they continued walking, Rayan whispered more to himself than to her. Maybe you're not what we expected. Maybe you're something more. She didn't answer. But far above them, several dark shapes moved across the sky, enemy cruisers, heading toward the human capital, and this time she did look up. Her voice was soft but deadly. If they've come for war, I'll give them one. High above the smoking lands, a sleek enemy warship cut through the clouds like a dark blade. Inside its command bridge, General Karath watched the feed with shaking hands. Not fear yet, but something close. He stood tall, draped in royal black. Armor trimmed with red. His face was calm, expression flat, but his left claw trembled slightly against the command panel. The feed played again the moment when the hover tank exploded. A still image zoomed in on the cause, her hair like silver. Fire, eyes sharp as blades, a black spear in hand. Karath leaned forward and whispered, "It can't be." A young officer beside him asked, "General, is that her?" Karath didn't answer. Instead, he turned and walked into his private chamber, the door sealed shut behind him. There, hanging on the far wall, was a piece of forbidden history. A shattered spear tip, suspended in crystal, with ancient blood dried into the cracks. He touched it, and the memory returned. 500 years ago. She stood beside him, not as his soldier, but his equal. He had loved her once, or thought he did, but when she refused to burn the innocent. With him, when she turned against the plan, he betrayed her. He sealed her in that cave with a smile, and now she was back. Karath slammed his fist against the wall. She should be dust. His voice cracked for the first time in years. Meanwhile, on the ground, she and Rayan passed through what remained of a refugee camp, burned tents, shattered dishes, a broken toy half buried in the dirt. Rayan bent down and picked up a small metal pendant, the kind given to children of war. They didn't even try to save them, he whispered. She looked at him. No, she said softly, because they've forgotten what mercy is. She turned, staring into the sky. They will remember. They reached the human base ruins just as a message broadcast from every remaining tower. The signal wasn't human. It came from Karath, and it was directed to her. The hologram flickered above the base, tall and clear. Karath's voice echoed in multiple languages. To the one who calls herself a warrior, to the ghost of a time long buried, I see you. I know you walk again. Come to me. Face me once more, or I will burn what little they have left. Rayan turned to her. He knows you're alive. No, she said, her grip tightening on her spear. Rayan stared at the sky. Do you know him? Yes, he hesitated. What was he to you? Her voice dropped. A lesson. Back on the warship, Karath sat alone. He didn't expect her to come. He knew her mind. He had designed her war strategies, taught her how to predict weakness, how to crush rebellion. But she had something now he never taught her, freedom, and freedom made her dangerous. On the way to the shuttle depot, she and Rayan moved through the wreckage of the Capitol Road. Human survivors watched her from the shadows. Some whispered, others stared, None approached until a child did. A girl, no older than 10, stepped out, face covered in dust, eyes red from smoke. She held out a flower, dead, dry but still. Held with care, the woman knelt, accepted it, placed it near her armor's heartplate. The girl whispered, "They said you were just a story." "I was," she replied. "But now I'm the end of theirs." As they neared the launch pad, Ran received a broken signal. General Wren, one of Earth's few surviving commanders, was alive and warned them. Karoth has activated the Skyhammer. She froze. Rayon looked up. "What's the Skyhammer?" she said. "One I told him never to build. A planet burner." He listened, and then did it anyway. Rayon's heart sank. "Can we stop it?" Said, stepping into the shuttle. "We end him before he fires it." As they lifted off, clouds turned black. From Koroth's ship, energy built. The Skyhammer charged, light forming in a growing sphere above the vessel. Rayon sat beside her. "What if this is suicide?" She looked out the window. "Then I'll remind him who taught him how to die." Inside Koroth's chamber, he watched her ship rise from the ashes of Earth, and for the first time in 5 centuries, he whispered a name he had buried deep. Not her code name, her true name, the one she had chosen for herself. Asterisk, the human shuttle broke through the ash clouds, rising above the dead cities. Inside, Rayon watched as the Earth grew smaller behind them, broken, bruised, and nearly silent in front of them. The sky was filled with shadows, not clouds. Ships, enemy war cruisers, dozens of them, formed a giant ring around the planet. They weren't just guarding, they were waiting, watching, like predators around. A wounded beast, Rayanne looked toward her. She didn't flinch, her eyes locked onto the largest ship in the center of the formation, the one with the glowing red core, the Skyhammer, buried deep inside. It looked like a city floating in space, bigger than any war vessel Rayon had ever seen. "Karoth is on that one?" Rayon asked. She nodded. "He always watches from the highest seat," Rayon whispered. "Then how do we get to him?" She stood up, walked to the ship's emergency hatch, and said 2 words. "We don't." The hatch opened. Rayon shouted, "Wait, what are you doing?" She didn't answer. She just jumped. In the freezing dark above Earth, her body cut through the air like a blade. Her armor hissed, activating old tech that still obeyed her. Her spear folded into a long staff, thrusters burning faint blue behind her boots. The enemy fleet saw her. Scanners pinged, lock-ons activated. Warnings screamed. A human, or anything else, should have turned to dust out there. But she was no ordinary being. She was fire wrapped in flesh. 5 cruisers turned to face her, weapons charging. Inside the main warship, Karoth narrowed his eyes. He could barely believe the readings. "She's coming alone?" "Yes, General." "She's falling straight toward us," he whispered to himself. "Of course she is." In space, the cruisers fired. Laser lances and plasma bolts crossed the void like lightning storms. The area around her lit up in red and white and gold, but she didn't fall. She danced, twisting, spinning, deflecting bolts with her spear. Dodging with impossible timing, one shot hit her shoulder. Her armor cracked, but she kept flying. Another barely missed her head. She pushed through the shockwave. And then she was inside one of the enemy cruisers. Rayon watched from the shuttle screen. Breath frozen, a small dot entered the ship. A few seconds later, the ship exploded. No warning, no buildup, just light, metal, and silence. She came out of the fire, was flying again, straight toward the next ship. Inside the command vessel, Karoth watched the destruction in disbelief. "She remembers everything," he muttered, "even the weak spots." One of his officers shouted, "She's already taken out 2 destroyers." Karoth's eyes narrowed. "Open the gate. Let her in." The officer stared. "Sir, let her come," Karoth said coldly. "If she wants to die face to face, I'll give her that honor." On the 4th ship, She landed without resistance. No alarms, no soldiers, just a long, empty hallway leading toward a single steel door. She stepped forward, blood on her armor. Smoke trailing from one arm, her breath sharp and focused as she reached the door. Slid open. Kuroth stood alone in the chamber wearing a sleek black battlesuit. The broken spear tip she once carried rested on a pedestal behind him. He didn't lift a weapon. He didn't move. He just looked at her. "You survived," he said. "No," she replied. "I endured." He stepped forward. "With me, I would have ruled nothing built on screams," she answered. "Then you'll fall with them," said coldly. She didn't reply. She threw the spear. The chamber exploded into motion. Kuroth dodged. She rushed forward. Fists collided. Sparks flew. This was not a battle between leaders. This was a war between what was and what refused to be forgotten. Kuroth fought like a beast, strong and brutal, but she moved like a storm, graceful, lethal, unstoppable. They broke walls, shattered floors. The ship trembled. Rayon, still aboard the human shuttle nearby, watched through the ship's window as the main vessel tilted, light flickering across its outer hull. "She's inside," he whispered. "She's actually doing it." Inside the command deck, the battle reached its peak. Kuroth struck her hard. She fell to her knees. Her armor cracked. He raised his blade, but she looked up, not with fear, with memory. "You taught me how to destroy," she said, "but you forgot one thing," he sneered. "What's that?" She smiled. "How to survive it." She drove her spear through the floor, into the power core beneath. A roar filled the ship. Systems failed. Kuroth's blade fell from his hand. She stood up as alarms screamed. "This time, you'll be buried," she said, walking away. Kuroth screamed behind her, but she didn't turn back. She jumped once more out of the collapsing flagship. As it burst into a ball of flame behind her, the fleet above Earth shuddered. Their leader was gone. Their weapon was awake, and she floated down like a fallen god, wounded but alive. The sky was hers again. She crashed through the upper sky like a burning comet. Her body hit the ground hard, carving a trail through ash, stone, and shattered glass. Dust rose into the air. Silence followed. Then she stood up. Her armor was cracked. One shoulder bled. Her spear was half melted. But her eyes, burning gold and silver, were still full of fire. Above her, the enemy fleet scattered. Kuroth's command ship was gone, rising pillar of smoke in the clouds. The heart of the armada had been torn out, and every enemy ship knew it. Rayon reached her seconds later, rushing down from the shuttle wreckage. He stumbled through the dust, nearly falling, but refused to stop. When he reached her, he dropped to his knees. "You did it," he said, breathless. "You actually did it." She looked around, then back at him. Her voice was quiet but clear. "No, we did." Rayon didn't understand at first. Then he turned and saw the people. From the ruins they came, human survivors. Dozens at first, then hundreds, men, women, children, not soldiers, citizens, farmers, teachers, engineers, scavengers. They didn't cheer. Not yet. They watched her, this bloodied, armored figure, standing where no one had stood before, and waited. Then a single old man stepped forward, bowed his head, and whispered, "We thought we were finished." Looked at him, and lowered her spear. "You were," she said gently, "but now you begin again." In the days that followed, the sky cleared. The enemy ships retreated, not because they were chased, but because they had seen something that shook them more than any weapon. They had seen her, a name once erased from every database. A legend no longer whispered, now walked among them, and yet she refused command. General Wren, wounded but alive, offered her full authority over Earth's surviving forces. She refused. The council offered her land, title, even a crown. She refused. Rayon asked her why. She looked at the broken spear in her hand. "Because the last time I was given power," she said, It cost me my soul. Instead, she helped rebuild, not with orders, with hands. She lifted beams, dug graves, carried food, taught soldiers how to fight like her, how to survive like her, and she never once wore a general's cloak to them. She became something more than a leader. She became proof that strength was not. Born from cruelty, that survival didn't mean forgetting kindness, that the galaxy's deadliest warrior could choose peace and still be dangerous. One night, stood alone near the edge of the forest, where the sky shimmered with starlight and the soil still smelled of fire. Rayan joined her. "They've started calling you Mother of Flame," he said. She raised a brow. "I've never had a child," he smiled. "Doesn't matter. You gave them something to believe in." She said nothing for a moment, then whispered, "I didn't save the world for them." Rayhan looked puzzled. "Then who?" She turned her eyes toward him. "You," she said. Rayan's throat tightened. "I'm not special," he said. "No," she replied. "You're human. You believed in something when everyone else gave up. You walked into death not knowing if I even existed. And because of that, I woke up." He said nothing, so she continued. "I was born to destroy. Created in labs, sharpened like a weapon. But when you looked at me, you didn't see a monster. I saw someone alone," he said softly. "And you gave me something I've never had. What's that?" "A choice." She stepped closer, laid the broken spear gently on the ground. "I choose to stay." Rayan's heart raced. Here, on Earth, among humans. She looked into the sky, where enemy fleets had once hovered. "Let them return," she whispered. "Let them try again. This time they'll face more than a warrior. They'll face a world that remembers what strength really means." And from that day forward, every child born under the new sun knew her story, not just of how she ended the war, but how she began something far greater. Hope.